What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 110 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
It feels good to be back, Steven.
Good. I'm glad to have you back. It's always a scramble when you're not around. I'm trying to do everything.
A lot of
Hosting,
hats to wear.
editing. Yeah, all the hats. It's nice to have you back. That's for sure.
It's good. It's good. Thank you for the warm welcome back to the show. I'm excited to be here with all of you folks because it is a historic day in PlayStation history this week. Of course, after just a few short years, the Jim Ryan era has come to an end. And not to mention that a ton of video games came out this week, one of which, Mortal Kombat 1, I've been playing. I'm excited to talk about. I've got a lot. We got a lot, a week away. Haven't been able to talk video games for quite some time, Steve. I'm
Mhm.
frothing at the mouth for this week.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I know Jim Ryan's pretty divisive, I guess, in terms of. Well, I think
Fair to say.
he's liked by the business side of the world. Probably pretty disliked by gamers, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I, this is an interesting one with Jim, right? Because I feel like usually when one of the platform holders, a major person steps down, you do a bit of a retrospective, you look back on their accomplishments and the things that they did and how their era defined the brand. And Jim is an interesting one. I think divisive is a good way to put it. I wouldn't say he's beloved. I wouldn't say he has fans the way that folks like Reggie have in the past, or like maybe some people are behind, Phil Spencer. He's always felt very corporate, and I feel like his kind of buttoned up lack of flavor really coincided
Mhm.
with Sony's buttoned up business forward era, right? We had that kind of during the PS3, they were the underdog, and they had a lot of personalities like folks like Shuhei Yoshida, or like Gio Corsi and some of those guys. But and then obviously, you know,
My boy Kaz. I love him. Evil
sure.
Kaz on Twitter was like a great era for me.
Yeah, and it's like there were these other, or like right before Ryan, like Sean Layden was a more visible CEO, right? Like he showed up at the Game Awards with the other
He was
platform
actually
holders.
at events.
Yeah.
Not only at the Game Awards, but he would be there, like, at E3, like, he would be on the show floor. I don't think I've ever seen photos of Jim Ryan, like, doing an interview at Gamescom in the same way that Phil Spencer did. He
You
just
know,
doesn't do it. He doesn't interact with the games media video games media in the same way that the other management of PlayStation has in the past as well.
Yeah, and I think and I think he's kind of spoken to it a little bit, right? Where like I'm paraphrasing a little bit from a statement that I read from him where he was talking about when he joined Sony, right, years ago. It was because he needed a job, right? Like he's not the type of executive that I feel like we as gamers want to see in those leadership roles, where they are somebody who, yeah, like has business acumen and everything ideally, right? But like is somebody who plays games and gets it, right? And
Mhm.
we've ragged on that picture of Jim where he's holding the controller and he looks like an alien who's never seen a video game controller before. We've joked about, that statement from a couple months ago where he's like, "I've talked to dozens of game fans," and it's like, "Have you, Jim? Have you? Are you out there talking
Well,
to
or like
game fans?"
the faux pas that he makes, right? When he talks about how no one wants to play old video games, like they'd look at them and they're
Right.
just like, "Why?" Why? I look at it and I'm like, "Why would anyone want to play this?" People only want to play the latest and greatest, and it's so strange to me that how you can run a company but just not understand your customer, but still run it really successfully.
Yeah.
Like he oversaw in his short time since February 2019, the launch of the PS5, the PSVR 2, which, we don't know how well it's done, but seemingly not so great.
I wouldn't
But
blame him for it either
no,
way, right?
you
Like that
yeah.
was a decision that
I
existed
kinda
predates him probably.
I don't think it existed before him, though, and I think he probably did doubled down on VR when he looked at what Meta was doing
Sure.
and was like, okay, we still need to be in this space. And I
Yeah,
think that was
fair enough.
probably a bit of a mistake. But he's started launching games on PC. We got God of War, we got Horizon, we got all of those games that came over to PC. PlayStation Productions really ramped up, and we got the Uncharted movie. We got the Last of Us TV series. All of that was under him. So and obviously the pivot to live service, which I want to talk about in a little bit. But
Yeah.
he's been a successful CEO. The company has succeeded. They have sold lots of PlayStation 5s and sold lots of copies of their games and made lots of money. And that's really all that a CEO is responsible for. They have fiduciary duty to the board of directors to make money.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you point to a lot of initiatives that it's always tough to ascribe any decision like that to one individual. Like I don't necessarily want to sit here and say, oh, these were all Jim Ryan's ideas, right? It's like the more likely scenario, right, is probably that under his leadership, those ideas were allowed to move forward and to be tried. And I think when you start rattling them off, there are some big successes there. I think applying the PlayStation IPs beyond games and like seeing value in developing multimedia properties or in stuff like the strategy we saw with Naughty Dog in The Last of Us Part 1 of like trying to find ways to leverage old games in new ways and trying to find ways to keep folks employed, in between projects. Like those are all good changes that did happen under his leadership, so even if all he did was not stand in the way of those ideas and those initiatives, yeah, credit where it's due, right? Like I think he inherited the brand when it was strong. In 2019, you're coming off of, the arguably the most successful PlayStation console to date in the PS4. Um, a really strong market penetration, really, really strong IP recognition of their first parties. Like he inherited the brand when it was in a strong place and he didn't fumble the bag and continued to try and grow things, right? And move things forward, right? Which, I think is not the sexiest thing to be the guy that, oh, your claim to fame is continuing a successful race, right? It's not you're not gonna look back on him the way that you do like a Sean Layden or like a Reggie Fils-Aimé or something like that, where somebody that you can point to, the
I mean,
brand was
yeah, Sean picked it up in 2014, right? It
right,
was just it was we just launched the PS4. That wasn't necessary. We were off the back of the PS3 being a bit of a disaster for them. It kind of evened out towards the end, but it obviously was. We needed someone in place that could lead them through that generation, which Sean did, and into the next generation. Yeah, Jim Ryan took over in 2019 and oversaw the launch of the PS5. All of that groundwork was done under Sean's leadership,
right.
and
It was already
he was the
developed.
one. Yeah, it was developed, it was ready to go, and Jim did a great job in launching it, especially during a global pandemic, but it wasn't necessarily him that was responsible for it. It was the
It's tough to
leadership
look at
prior
those
to that.
accomplishments and say that they were due to his decision making as much as it
Yeah.
was like him coming in during a period of transition and being a stable presence, right? And being a stable steward of the already very powerful PlayStation brand. And that's not to say that that's not relevant, right? Like we've seen that happen. We've seen the reins get handed over and then immediately you fumble the bag, right? Look at Xbox. It happens. But, so credit where credit's due on that one, right? Like I think it's not the sexiest list of accomplishments, but I think you're right to say that, yeah, like PlayStation did thrive under his leadership. If even if all you can say he did was, not gum up the works when it was already a well-oiled machine. But that happens all the time, right? New leadership comes in, they want to do things their way, they want to shake things up, they want to be able to prove that it was their changes that made things successful. That's a very easy narrative to see come to pass. And he avoided those pitfalls. So I think at the very least, you know, give him credit for that.
I
Even
think he
if
probably is directly responsible for some of these things, though. Like, I think The decision to release games on the last generation as well, I think was probably a decision that came from him,
And
from
on
the top
PC,
down.
like,
And on
that was
PC, yeah.
a gamble. That was a thing that years ago would have seemed insane, and, even at the time, I remember being like, "Ah, this is, it's never gonna be what it's becoming," right? Where it's becoming a new, arm of their software business, and I think that is a strategy that long term will probably prove to have been a really good move.
And some bold acquisitions, we got Bluepoint, that was a great acquisition. Nixies, specifically to do the PC ports, a great
Yeah.
acquisition, a great studio. Insomniac, I believe, was purchased under his
I
leadership,
believe you're correct, yeah.
which was a great acquisition for them as well. And they've gone from strength to strength to strength to keep pushing out games. And then Bungie, which leads into his play in his vision for the future of PlayStation, which is a platform and a place for live service games. And I don't necessarily think that most gamers agree with that.
Yeah, and I do wanna talk about, well, we can transition to that conversation. I'm gonna just say this, right? Insomniac, you're correct. It was August 2019. I have no idea how key he was in this negotiation or whatever, but Sony acquiring Insomniac for $229 million has gotta be one of the best acquisitions in the history of games. They are worth.
That's the cost of The Last of Us. That's how much The Last of Us
Yeah,
cost to make.
right, and this is now, like, say what you will, right, about Insomniac. Yeah, maybe they don't produce the, 10 out of 10 critical darlings like The Last of Us and God of War, but let's not mince
They're
words.
consistent though, like,
Yeah,
they have pushed out so many games since the acquisition, right? It's
3. This will be their
insane.
3rd PS5 game this year. And
Yeah,
where
it's
are the rest
kinda
of these
crazy.
chuckleheads? They got one game in the can, maybe.
And then other PC ports as well, obviously Nixies is putting in the lion's share of the work there, but they've got some assistants to
Their
help
games are
them
the
with
ones
it.
that work better at launch though, right?
Yeah,
Right? Spider-Man was great day 1 on PC.
and same with Miles Morales, same with Ratchet
Mhm,
and Clank.
mhm.
And I
Yeah,
have no doubt
so
that Spider-Man 2, when it launches later on this year, is gonna be a massive success as well.
putting a ring on that finger is, that might, if you can say that that was because of him, then that's the biggest W of his whole career, straight up, because they are, I think, inarguably one of the top 3 studios in Sony's arsenal, if not number 1, number 2, depending on what metric you judge by. If you're judging by profitability, they're probably the number 1 studio.
Mhm. The Wikipedia cites a quote from Sean Layden where he said that they'd been evaluating the option of acquiring Insomniac for some time due to their success with the Spider-Man game, and that contributed significantly towards that in the end, and demonstrated that Insomniac was an impact maker and a style setter. So it seems like Sean Layden probably put in quite a lot of the work there as
Laid down the
well, and
groundwork.
Jim Ryan got that across the line. Maybe
That's
that's
his
a bit
whole
of a
career.
theme.
That's like his whole thing, right? It's being the guy that finished Sean Layden's work.
He picked up Sean Layden's torch and just carried on the relay race. And maybe that's all they needed.
Yep. It's like, could be worse. Could be worse. So
So
let's talk about.
before we move into the live service pivot, I want to touch on what you think of this in general because I read the
Sure.
statement from Sony about, and it says, to support Mr. Ryan in this transition, Sony Group Corporation President, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki will assume the role of chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment effective of October 2023. So pretty much immediately after the notice was put out. And effective April 1st of next year, Mr. Totoki will be appointed the interim CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, while he continues his role at Sony Group Corporation. This does not feel like it was planned to me in the same way that the succession from Jim to Jim from Sean was planned. It feels like either Jim was was shoved out the door and it's like, "You're out, you're going. We've made this decision for you, and you can work here until March," or Jim made the decision and he put his 6 months notice in and was like, "In 6 months' time, I'm going, and it seems like it was maybe a bit of a surprise. What do you think?
I think some version of that is correct. I think you're probably right. Usually, right, like when somebody steps down from this kind of role, there's a planned successor. There's been some amount of effort put into smoothing that transition to, having a transfer of knowledge. I don't get the impression that that's what's going on here, right? It does seem rather abrupt, especially when the official announcement is, um, Hiroki Totoki will take over this role until they find someone else is strange, you know? Like obviously when Jim took over the role for Sean, like that was a planned transition of power, right? And it was something that they seemingly knew was coming. I think there's a couple ways you can interpret this, right? Like I know I've seen Jim's official explanation is that, like, he's stepping back to not have to travel as much and spend more time with his family. That's reasonable. He's old, right? Like, and not old, but he's an older guy. The idea that he would maybe wanna take a step back and not be a CEO and have this much pressure and everything is not insane, and when you think about the context of what you've suggested, right, where, he came on in 2019, that was right at the end of the PS4's launch cycle or life cycle, and it was moving into the PS5's launch. The PS5 has now successfully launched. It's healthy and it's an established market leader. It's selling well. All the games in
Mhm.
active development, mileage may vary in a couple of them. We'll talk in a few minutes, but things seem stable. It seems like a stable time for PlayStation, which if you're Jim and you've been thinking about leaving, presents an opportunity for like, hey, I'm going to step away now at a time where things are healthy and things are stable, and it's not going to rock the foundation of the company for me to step back, right? That makes sense. That said, you would think if that was the case that there would be a more stable plan in place, unless he kind of sprung it on them as you suggested. I think the other way to look at that is potentially they're not happy with some of the decisions that he's made in recent memory, right? We know that he was in the headlines a lot during this FTC trial. He put his foot in his mouth in a couple key ways. He was, like let's be honest, he was caught saying things that were not true, that contradicted private statements that he'd made. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that they were perjury or that he broke the law or anything like that, but I think there's a reason that his name was in the headlines every other week and it was rarely good. I imagine that they're not super pleased with that, and I think then there's the other point that you've been driving to during this conversation, which is that under his leadership, PlayStation is committing to make a really big swing on live service games and to invest an additional however many $1 billion, I can't quite remember, um, added to their development budget. And that 60% of that budget was going to be geared towards these live service games. And when you think about the fact that the most public version of that, right? The most recognizable game being the project from Naughty Dog, the Last of Us multiplayer, and that the only report we have of that in recent memory is that it wasn't very good, that the team's been reduced, that the game hasn't outright been canceled, but there's no plans to release it, and we don't know if it's ever going to materialize. And
Mhm.
they spent all this
And you
money on,
spent 3.6 billion on Bungie,
which was a waste
and
of money.
yeah,
I
it
said it
kind of
then.
feels
Now
like that, yeah.
I said it then, and I'll say it again. That was a huge, huge overspend. Bungie is not worth that much money. Bungie has one IP in their entire two IP in their entire library, and
3, I guess, technically. Marathon's on the way,
yeah,
but,
that was my second. I'm
Halo's
not
not as.
counting
Oh,
Halo.
okay, yeah,
Xbox
yeah.
owns Halo.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just
Xbox has
like,
Halo,
I
yeah.
don't, Destiny doesn't make money like that. Destiny doesn't make billions of dollars a year. What you're doing is investing for their knowledge and their experience and everything. Is that really worth that much? I don't think so. I really don't. I think that this is a gamble that's not going to pay off for them. I've been saying this for years. I think that we are approaching a bubble bursting moment for live service games because we are entering a recession. People have less money than they have had in the last decade plus when live service games came to prominence. Inflation right now is insane. And
Mhm.
people can barely afford to keep groceries in their house and to, have the creature comforts and luxuries that they've been used to on their existing salaries, right? Like those things are going away. And yeah, like free to play games can generate hundreds and hundreds of hours of enjoyment, but guess what? You don't need to spend microtransactions to do that. And if people get to a point where they don't have money, they're not going to be buying V-Bucks. They're not going to be spending on
Well,
cosmetics.
that's one route for live service, and I constantly come back round to the point of that's not always what live service is. It doesn't
Sure.
always have to be microtransactions. I think Hitman proves that point. I think that's what Ubisoft is trying to do with the Assassin's Creed pivot to live service. And I think those make sense. It's smaller levels, you can keep adding content into it, and it becomes a living, breathing thing. Seems like that's what Microsoft is maybe doing with Forza Motorsport when that launches. It's just called Forza Motorsport. It's a bit of a reboot. They can keep adding cars to it, they can keep adding tracks to it, and it's a platform that you add to and build upon. It's what I'd love Nintendo to do with Mario Party, and I would love Jackbox to do it, so that I don't have to keep figuring out
Yeah.
which game is in which party pack and where that is, and just have Jackbox, and I can sign on and do it. I think live service can be done well, but I think the live service that PlayStation is going for is the free to play multiplayer or low cost multiplayer games.
Because that's the
And
thing, though, right? Is like that's where the money is, and that's why they're investing in this. They're not investing in this to be like, yeah, we're gonna, make a modest profit on this game that never. That's not the goal, right? Like the goal is to have a billion a month maker like Fortnite, and I don't think you can replicate that. I think that was a flash of the right game at the right time with the right resources, and
I think Epic's shown this week with the layoffs that we'll touch on a little bit more next week, hopefully, that even they can't replicate that because they tried to do it with Fall Guys, they couldn't do
and
it,
they just laid
and
off how much of
they
that
just laid off
studio?
most of that studio
Like
because of it.
75% of that studio is gone now. And
Mhm.
they bought Rumbleverse and that's gone. And I want to be clear because I know there are people in the audience that are probably like, yeah, fuck Epic. I don't think that those studios would still exist if Epic didn't acquire them. I think they would have went out of business of their own accord because I don't think that making a games as a service game like that is supported by that has to be supported by a daily active community that wants to spend money on non-essential cosmetics. I don't think that's a viable business model for 90% of the games that try to do it. I think, yeah, Fortnite, Destiny, like there are these behemoth titles that can succeed and can find an audience, but that's what you need. You need a audience of millions of people where this is the only game they play or one of the only games they play and that they are constantly funneling money into it. And I just don't think that
Yeah,
that's
and
sustainable.
I think for me, I struggle to see that happening on a single platform as well. Like, I really think these games only work when they're multi-platform.
Right.
Bungie is continuing to make their games multi-platform. Marathon was announced at a PlayStation event, but it's still coming to Xbox. It's still coming to PC day and date. And it seemed like the other Sony studios aren't going to be going that route. There was no question that The Last of Us Factions was going to only launch on PlayStation and was never going to come to Xbox. It just wouldn't happen. And I don't know that you can make a successful free to play live service game, or even not even free to play. I don't think you can make a successful live service game that's fixed to a single platform. I don't think Minecraft would be as successful as it is today if Microsoft had bought them and was like, "Okay, we're taking it off of PlayStation. It's no longer available there, and this is an
It
exclusive
couldn't
game."
be.
The same deal with Elder Scrolls Online. That wouldn't be as successful as it is today if they'd have made it a single exclusive game.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And I think that that's just something that like so many of the games that are successful, that's part of their success, right? Like that was a huge part of Fortnite's success was we are everywhere. We can be played anywhere. You're on a phone, you can play with your friends. You're on Switch, it doesn't matter. And we can take your money wherever you are. And like, I mean, man, we're already seeing this. Like we're already seeing a lot of those studios just like run out of steam. and it's like even a game like Fortnite is gonna wane. And we saw it with Apex. Apex Legends is starting to struggle and is starting to flag and is losing players and is not maintaining the level of profitability that it did at its peak. And what does that mean? Right? Like how like if the biggest games in the space can't maintain an audience, what hope does an indie have to be anything more than a passing trend, right? In a game that maybe you stop playing your Fortnite or your Destiny or whatever your actual game is that you play week to week, and you go and break off for a couple weeks and you play this new game, and then they run out of
Mhm.
content and you get bored and you move back to the thing that you were already playing.
I mean, that was we saw that problem with, Battlefield. It was like Battlefield launched a new game, it was like, "Why am I playing this?" Same with Halo Infinite, it was like, "Yeah, but where's season 2? Where's season 3? Like, where's the content?" You have to have a plan in place to keep funneling me content, and seemingly, Fortnite was the only game that understood that and could get it right and could keep giving
Well,
us new content all the time.
and they also just have a ton of money. Like is the thing, right? It's like Epic is $1 billion company of and
Well,
like
and they're the
and
ones developing the game engine, so they know it like the back of their hand, so they can just pump content into that thing, like, so
yeah.
quickly and so easily.
Yeah, so it's just like how you can't compete with that, right? Like you just can't. And like I think we're seeing that now. I don't not to toot my own horn. I've been saying this to y'all for months, right? That like this is gonna happen. There's gonna be a reckoning. And I think the market is now reacting, right? And I think you're seeing Epic and PlayStation and all these companies reevaluate their plans and reevaluate doubling down on games as a service because I think with where we're at, the market is full. There is not room for more live service games at this point, and we all can't support more than a few of these games at a time. And there's a finite number of people that want to play games like this in the first place. And I think by and large, they are spoken for. And like, man, look at how many of these games have come out, found at least some level of critical acclaim, and are gone, right? Like in the
Yeah,
last
how's
year,
Multiverses doing?
right?
Like, that
Multiverses,
was
Rumbleverse,
insane. Yeah.
Fall Guys is seemingly in trouble. Knockout City got closed down this year. Like I said, Apex is starting to decline. Sega had that
Like
game that they
PUBG as
killed
well, like the
off.
original. Like, no one's playing PUBG these days. I mean, they are, like, I'm looking at the numbers on SteamDB, but compared to Fortnite, it's nothing, you know? It's 100,000 people. It's nothing to sneeze at, but it's not like Fortnite
Is
numbers.
is that enough to support a studio independently? Like I don't know. And like what happens when that gets smaller? And again, the other thing you got to think about is these games are in a pretty precarious place too. Because think about something like Fortnite, right? Fortnite right now, top dog, still has a ton of players, still has a ton of content drops that people get into and they pay money for. What happens a year from now, right? Say things are tighter. Inflation keeps going the wrong direction. People's wages are continuing to stagnate. What happens when the, you know, I don't really know what the age range is for Fortnite players, if I'm honest, but let's say 8 years old is maybe when people start playing Fortnite for the sake of my argument,
I
right?
don't think they're meant to until they're a teen, P. I think it's rated T for teen.
I don't know if that's true. So say it's 8 years old, for the sake of argument, right? Let's say that a statistically significant percentage of Fortnite players are between the ages of 8 and 14, right? And they have no source of income. They don't have jobs. They are not young enough to even have like a part-time gig or something like that for the summer. They have whatever money their parents give them or that they get, holidays or whatever. Maybe mom and dad were paying for a Fortnite season pass every year or every season, right? So a couple times a year. Maybe they were buying you some V-Bucks a couple times a year, or you were spending some of your Christmas money on V-Bucks. Well, what happens when that money dries up? And, mom and dad are
Mhm.
like, we don't have $20 for you to do another season of Fortnite. You want to keep playing, you play for free and use the dozens and dozens of cosmetics that you've already acquired, right? Okay, Now, if that trend continues and more of these active daily players feel their free, their expendable budget, their expendable income start to, you know, get a little bit tighter, what's one of the first things that's going to go? It's the season pass to Fortnite because you can play Fortnite for free. You can still have the exact same amount of fun spending no money in Fortnite, right? And what happens when people stop spending as much money, but the number of players doesn't go down?
I
Pretty
know, and you've
scary.
got to maintain the servers. I mean, in terms of Fortnite side of things, I guess they've still got the sponsorships from Disney, the tie-ins with
Sure.
artists and
But,
record labels that they can do.
but,
But that's like a chicken and egg thing, right? Are they going to come there if the players aren't there? It
yeah,
constantly
what happens
reminds me of
when,
do you remember the app HQ Trivia? Did you ever play that?
yeah,
And it was like the height of success, The Rock was there presenting it, and
I
then it
remember.
just fucking disappeared
Yeah,
off the
shit
face
happens,
of the
right?
earth.
And think about that, right? You bring up a great point. Huge part of the appeal of Fortnite is the brand interactions, which also make them money. So, what happens when Disney, for example, who has already partnered with them a few times, we did a Marvel season, we did a Star Wars season, whatever else they're going to do, whatever the
The
next.
Disney princess season, I wanna be
Sure.
Snow White running around with a gun.
Sure. They hey, DC let Superman run around with a
Let me
gun, so
let
why
me
not?
throw let me throw poison apples at people. Let's do that. I'll be the
So,
we can be the evil Disney characters. I'll be Ursula. Can you imagine her, like, going across the land
six
like a
different guns. So, right, there you go. So we're gonna do a Disney princess season, and we pay Fortnite millions of dollars, right, to collaborate on this, and we're gonna get a percentage of this, the sales that come through, and blah 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 blah. Okay, great. It's all well and good. Now, what happens when we sold a lot less than we did the last couple times? What's up with that? Oh, it's maybe this one's not as popular. Marvel, Star Wars, big deal. Okay, fine. Then they do another one, and that one doesn't sell as well. Are they gonna want to partner again? Are they gonna want to spend a bunch of money
I'd be
again? Are
like,
they
"I
gonna?
don't wanna pay you as much money anymore." I've always found it so strange that Disney's the one paying and not the other way around,
It's
but I
because it's
guess it makes sense.
access. That's
Yeah.
the thing is, honestly, when you get down to it, what is so valuable about Fortnite is that so many people play it. So that's why people would spend money to advertise inside it. It's the way that
Yeah.
magazines used to work, right? Is that if you want to market to, young men from the age of this to this, and they are interested in this, this, and this, then you're going to advertise in this baseball magazine, right? Or you want to attract, young people from the age of 16 to 32 and they're interested in video games or music or art or whatever, then you're gonna advertise in Electronic Gaming Monthly and Rolling Stone, right? And it's like
Mhm.
that shit doesn't exist anymore, or if it does, it's a fraction of a fraction. It's not the same penetration that you used to get. But with Fortnite, it's like, yeah, there's no better, or at least the last couple years, there's been no better way to connect with young people, because young people are in Fortnite. They're playing Fortnite. They're hanging out in Fortnite. That's where they were spending their social time. And it makes sense that, oh, I'm Weezer and I want to advertise my new album to young people. We're going to do a concert in Fortnite, right? Like, but when those numbers become half of what they are, if they become a third of what they are, right? Like, that severely limits its footprint and its ability to market things and to put things in front of young people. And then that totally changes their entire viability as an arbiter of culture in the way that it is. And when that stops, then the primary income is going to be through those cosmetics and those season passes and all these things that are highly,
Which is where they started. I mean, and
which is
Epic also
fine.
does have the revenue from their game engine and seemingly with Unity fucking up that more people are gonna
Oh
jump onto
yeah,
their
and
game engine as well.
that's not me saying that like that means something bad for Epic or anything like that. It's just the
Mhm.
reality that like
That's
the
what happens
expectation,
with live service games, yeah.
yeah, the expectation that Fortnite's peak pinnacle success was something that anybody could replicate was a fool's errand to start with, because no game makes that much money. No game is the juggernaut that it or Call of Duty or whatever else is. And all these other games that were able to steal a slice of that pie for any amount of time, they're all flagging. I don't know that
Mhm.
Apex Legends is going to be around in 2 or 3 years, right? I don't know that any of these. And will Fortnite still be around? Yeah. Will
Or will Destiny, like, do you think Destiny's got legs? Do you think that's got longevity? Or do you think they're kind of like they're coming to the end of it, Marathon's the next big thing, that's what they're hedging their bets on? And do you think Sony has the IP and the franchises that will lure people into a live service game? We saw the leak with the, like, do you remember the chibi version of Aloy and like the
yeah.
live service game of that potentially coming? Could they do like a Monster Hunter like world style thing with Aloy? Could they do something with God of War and Kratos?
I
Or could
mean,
we have like a Nathan Drake kind of live service game?
I think it's a really hard question to answer without knowing what their expectations are. And for me, looking at them being like, we're going to invest 60% of our development budget and we're going to increase our development budget by what was it, 2 or 3 billion dollars? I don't quite remember. But it was several billion. And or
So it was 2 billion was
okay.
the total spend in 2024 up till 2024.
Mm.
And 40% of that will apparently be for live service games. They've got 12 live service games due to launch by the fiscal year ending March 2026. So that is 2025, 4 and 2025. There are 12 live service games launching, and apparently it will account for 55% of its development budget in the current business year, rising to 60% in the year ending in 2026.
So that
And
to
they
me, right with that context, I don't know, man. I mean, like, do I think that Sony has IP that's attractive enough to work in one of those kinds of games? Sure. But
Like, I could see, like, MLB The Show, for example, that they
yeah,
make, and that is a multi-platform game. I could see that being a pretty successful live service game for them in the
sure.
same way that FIFA was for EA and n now,
Yeah,
EAFC.
and I see that, right? Like baseball is a very popular sport, right? And it's popular in multiple countries, right? Like it's obviously really popular in the States,
And
but like
Japan.
I was gonna say, it's a big deal in Japan. It's a big deal in South America. There are other markets where baseball matters enough where like you could probably replicate the success of what's it called, the card system that they have in football club
Oh, they're
FIFA
called foot
FC.
foot tokens, FUT. You buy
Sure,
foot bucks
great,
or something,
yeah,
yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah.
like yeah, like could that be a thing? Sure, but it's also like, is any other sports game as popular as FIFA? No. So like,
It's not
what
called FIFA anymore, so,
football
we
club?
need to
EA
get
Football Club.
that word out
We
of our
gotta get ahead
mouths.
of that. EA Football Club. Uh, right? It's like, like Madden and the WWE games and and those games all have an NBA, like they all have some level of success. They're all successful to a degree, but they're not FIFA big. And like if PlayStation needs it to be FIFA big to justify the investment, then I think that's a losing errand. If they need if of 12 of these games, right? A certain number of them need to be a bona fide hit, then I don't think that's a model that makes sense. I think if your
Hmm.
business needs megalithic monster hits to be safe, then that's a hell of a
Which is
gamble.
I think that's the problem we saw with the EA, right? With Anthem, where they put so much pressure on BioWare that this game had to be so successful, shoehorned it into a specific engine. Everything they set they set the studio up to fail, and I
I
feel
mean,
like maybe that's what's happening on the PlayStation front as well. Do
yeah.
you think with Jim out the door in 2024, all of this stuff gets undone immediately? Those 12 live service games are cancelled. We're not going to get any of that stuff, or do you think this is those are in the pipeline, those are done, but moving forwards, we're going to shift back to that single player experience that PlayStation fans know and love?
I do. I think on some level that's going to be what happens. I would not be surprised if the takeaway here is okay, look, a certain number of these 12 games are already in active development. Whatever ones of them are done enough to be put out and not embarrass us are going to get released, and we're going to make what we can make back on them. and then we're gonna quietly cancel the rest, and we're gonna pull back. And when we get asked about live service is still very much a future of play, a part of PlayStation and our partnership with Bungie and blah blah blah. And you pay lip service and you quietly pivot away. In the same way that you put out the PSVR 2 and you quietly don't talk about the fact that it's not exactly setting the world on fire. And when you have a game to put out, you talk about it and say, look how committed we are to VR. Of course, we're committed to VR. Buy one. And then in a couple of years, we're like, hey, where's all the VR games? And they're like, oh, I don't, nobody bought it. I'm sorry. And that's that. I think that's what they're going to do. Because the idea that they're going to continue to be like, yeah, let's invest billions of dollars into this while we see every other publisher in the industry lay people off and report record low returns and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
I think the industry is going to, in a big way, move away from live service games. In the same way that live service games were the big trend of the last decade, I think we're going to see a real aversion to them because I think all those companies and all those publishers and all the suits that were like, Fortnite, blood in the water. We got to get that Fortnite money. Where's our live service game? I think they're increasingly seeing that it costs a ton of money and time to develop these games. And that whenever you put one out, it's a 50-50 shot, whether it's going to take off or it's going to die in 6 months. And I don't see how you justify investing billions of dollars into hoping that one of your games pays for the rest of them. That seems like a
Well,
hell of a
it's
gamble when you
billions.
could
It's
use those billions of dollars to build new studios and make new games that sell your hardware, which is your
yeah.
bread and butter, and then come to PC later and sell well there.
Do you think hardware is going to continue to be
Sorry,
the bread and butter though?
last point. And those IP can then be turned into movies and TV shows because they're story
That
centric.
I think is the big thing, right? Is that Jim, I think, realized that PlayStation could go beyond the box in some way, and I think with PlayStation Productions, that's proved to be true. The HBO series was an absolute smash hit, and I would imagine that continuing with the movies, they're gonna carry on that in the same way that Nintendo did, right? With the Mario and the partnership with Illumination, makes sense. It's beyond the box.
They
We're
learned there
gonna
was another way to make
yeah,
$1 billion.
we can keep making money that way. But I think Jim also saw that you could be multi-platform and it wouldn't matter. And I think maybe the acquisition with Bungie was a way to be multi-platform while still saving face. In that they gave them carte blanche. They're going to operate independently. They can continue to publish their games under their own label, and we might allow them to publish other games on other platforms if they want to. Whereas, seeing PlayStation's logo on an Xbox probably wouldn't feel great for them. But I don't necessarily see why there's a problem with that. If someone has an Xbox and wants to buy it, if the whole plan is a live service game and we want to make money from microtransactions, why restrict it? Why would you not say this would be great on the Xbox as well?
It's a branding thing. I think if you want kind of an analogous example from other industries, a couple come to mind for me. One of which is Disney. Right, for many years had an imprint I believe was called Buena Vista Pictures, and that was where they released all of their adult oriented
That was
content.
Touchstone. Yeah, we had that here.
Touchstone, right there
Yeah.
you go. Maybe Buena Vista was another. Either way,
Buena
Touchstone,
Vista's
right?
how they, like, distributed, globally. Like, they distribute their, like,
Thank you.
VHSs and shit.
So think about that, right? Where it's like, well, so and so, whomever, right? Like, well, when you see the Disney name on the box, that means it's family friendly, it's safe for my child, it's this, it's that. That brand means something, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, we want to be able to put out other stuff. We want to be able to be flexible and have these other options and not have to be like, look, PlayStation's putting their games on Xbox. They must be failing, right? It
Do you think that matters, though? Like,
yeah,
Nintendo put their name on Bayonetta. They're the
right.
family-friendly company. They're known for Mario and family games, and well, here they are putting their name on a game featuring a scantily
Yeah.
clad lady that shoots people.
I do think it matters. I think with something like that, I think Nintendo was confident that people understand what ESRB ratings are, right? And that like, okay, like we're publishing this game, but you know, uh you're the grandmother that's going to buy Switch games for their kid is not accidentally picking up Bayonetta, right? Like that's there's not a risk of brand confusion for them there. Whereas if Sony all of a sudden starts putting PlayStation games on Xbox, that does open up the conversation for, well, why are they doing that? Is that a thing that they're nervous about? Like, what it it it's optically, I think, not very good. Do I think it would materially hurt them? That's a different conversation. But I think it's the thing of like, you want to project an air of strength. They are the number one market leader. And if you want to play their game of the year candidates, you got to buy a PlayStation because the PlayStation is the best console and it has the best games. That's
Mhm.
that's their that's their narrative. That's what they do, right? And to them, I do think being like, yeah, no, I mean, yeah,
I
PlayStation's the
think it
best place
harms
to
them as a
play, but
business, though.
if you want to play The Last of Us Factions, you can play it on Xbox. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's weakness. That is
I
projecting
think
weakness.
you could, like, see it as you really liked The Last of Us Factions. You played that on Xbox. Well, you wanna play the actual game, the game with the story, you want more in that franchise, come and buy a PlayStation, come over to us, and you can play it there. I think
Yeah.
you can have that as, like, a you've got your Halo products of the God of Wars, the Horizons, The Last of Us, and they're only on PlayStation, and you need to buy our box if you want to play them. But you can play the other games elsewhere in the same way that Xbox is doing that strategy, right? And I think if they continue down the live service strategy, it'll fundamentally hurt their business if they don't make them multi-platform
Yeah.
because
I think you're right.
we saw that you know, Microsoft spoke about Call of Duty and how they've got no plans to make that exclusive to Xbox, and I believe them because you look at the numbers, it fucking prints money on PlayStation. Why would you spend all that money on Activision for Call of Duty and then take it off that platform so that you can stop making money? Like it makes no sense. And I think if you're gonna make these games, especially if they're new IP, something that's not necessarily intrinsically linked to PlayStation, like a Last of Us. Thinking Helldivers, for example, right? That's launching next year. Helldivers 2 is coming to PlayStation 5. It's published by Sony, and it's also coming to PC day and date. It's the first PlayStation published game coming to another platform day and date. Why is that not launching on Xbox? No one thinks Helldivers and goes, "That's a PlayStation game."
They want
Like
you
they,
to though. Is the thing is like that is a PlayStation IP that's been associated with PlayStation and they want you to think of it that way. And it's the
mm,
same way that like yeah, like Splatoon would be more successful if it was on every other platform, but Nintendo's not going to do that. They want you to buy a Switch. And I think
yeah,
that's the whole
I
thing is
yeah.
like when you compare what Xbox is doing and what PlayStation is doing, Xbox has essentially conceded that they will never be the number one console. PlayStation is the number one console. They don't need to concede that. Hardware is a huge part of their business. It's their bread and butter. They have the most popular name brand box. And for the regular Joe Jill that wants to go out and buy a console and play Call of Duty and play EA uh, FC and play, maybe God of War or Assassin's Creed or whatever, PlayStation's the place to go. Why would you go anywhere else, right? And granted, Xbox increasingly making a case for themselves, Starfield, stuff like that, sure. But they're catching up. They're trying to catch up to Sony in that regard. And Sony doesn't need to. They're ahead. And I think you're right that, they not putting these games on other platforms, they're doing so at their own peril. But I think that's why I don't believe in this strategy, is I think it's fundamentally at odds with their core business strategy, which is to sell hardware. And yeah, I do think that when you look at putting these games on PC, of wanting to have a cloud-based solution and all this stuff, I think they're trying
But
to
that feels like
future-proof
they're
themselves.
constantly chasing the competition, like,
Well,
we're
hold on.
chasing the
Let me
fact
just
that other
let me just finish this
studios
point.
did.
I think that they are flirting with the idea that eventually the box won't be the thing, and that the PlayStation brand needs to be more than that, and that's why they're investing in this new direction. But that's not what the PlayStation brand is today. And to me, it feels like you have one foot in one camp and one foot in the other camp. Whereas whether you believe in it or not, Xbox's vision is clear and they put their money where their mouth is. And with
It's very clear
PlayStation,
after the leaks.
I don't see that. I feel like this feels like a strategy that is at odds with what has historically worked for them. And
Mhm.
I don't know, because I don't see them putting these games on Xbox, and I think if they don't, they may struggle to find an audience.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, maybe you stop publishing these under PlayStation and you're just like, "Hey, Bungie, these are all new IPs, put them under your label."
Yeah,
And that becomes their touchstone. And it's like you're gonna be the live service studio publishing arm of PlayStation, and that's now
train
gonna be
people
your
that
role.
Bungie means, that the Bungie name means, live service excellence.
Yeah,
And maybe that's the plan, right? Because, like, to your point, Marathon probably will be on Xbox, right?
definitely will be. It's on the website.
What does that mean for a Helldivers and these other games that are like, these are PlayStation games, they're not
I
Bungie
know, it
games.
just feels
Which
like they
is
put it out
which?
to die. It's like, why are you letting Bungie put their game on Xbox after you spent billions on them and then not make it exclusive versus Helldivers, which is a kind of double A game,
And one
and
that
it's
is seemingly gonna struggle to find an audience more than Marathon, right?
yeah.
Like, it would benefit more from being multi-platform than Marathon would.
Yeah, and it's like, it's a full price game as well. It's not like Helldivers is going out as a live service game and it's free to play and you can quickly get in, or it's free on PlayStation Plus. You gotta pay 50, 60 quid for this thing. It's 50 on PC, 70 on PlayStation. Still don't understand that pricing strategy either. It's like, what's going on there? It's just there's a lot of things that are up in the air, and I think maybe they will benefit from a new CEO coming in whenever that may be. I would like to think that, yeah, they've got an interim CEO planned at the moment for April, but hopefully by that point they found a successor. It does still feel really strange to me, even when Herman Hulst took over PlayStation Studios, like that was a smooth transition from his predecessor. It was like someone's taken over and it's Herman, and here's the new head of the studios, and that made sense. And I think they need to find a CEO before April, and they probably are scrambling at the moment to find someone that can fill in that role, so they don't get stuck with an interim CEO, because that does make them look weak to Wall Street, for example, where it's like, oh, you don't even have a CEO at the moment. No, what does no one want that job? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. So it'll be interesting to see. I would not be surprised if this is the calm before the storm for, like, many shakeups at PlayStation, because I gotta imagine that they're looking at the last week of layoffs and all of the uncertainty around these live service games and thinking, "What the fuck are we doing?
Hmm.
What did we just get ourselves into? What have we committed to investing now up closer to $5 billion between the acquisition and then this investment budget increase, right? Like, they've put $5 billion into this live service thing that seemingly is a trend that's about to end. And that
I mean, when
is,
you look at the competition, it's nothing, right? It's like what, 70 billion by Activision, something crazy.
mhm.
So it's like,
They have a lot
it's
smaller market cap
10%.
though.
Yeah, you
Like,
do, and
that's
you get one of those valuable IPs in the industry and a huge play on mobile as well.
mhm. Right? And it's like, you think about that $3 billion, that could have been Square.
Probably would have been better to be Square, yeah. Square already seems synonymous with PlayStation.
Exactly. Final Fantasy 16 feels like a PlayStation exclusive, right? And that
Mhm.
that could have been a company you locked down, and then you own Final Fantasy and you double down on, we're the place to play JRPGs, right? Or we're the place to play marquee single player experiences. Like,
Yeah,
that's the
and you get a
PlayStation
live
brand.
service play there as well with Final Fantasy 13. It's like
Mhm.
you've already got your live service game there. People really like it. A lot of people jumped ship from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy this year because of some issues with the content.
And I
So
mean,
I
look,
don't know,
man,
it's
like,
strange.
there's other companies like Sega, right? Where, like, they had that association with Atlas and now they don't. And those games are going to be multi-platform now. And, like, that's money you could have spent to lock
Right,
that
and they
down.
seem to spend a lot of marketing time over on the Microsoft front as well.
Mhm. And that's, again,
And their day and date on Game Pass, like, Microsoft's has spent big bucks there, I would
and I'm
imagine.
sure that that's because PlayStation wouldn't or couldn't sign that deal again and be like, "Yeah, we'll give you some
Sorry,
money."
sorry, we spent our budget on Bungie this year. We don't have the cash to give you anything.
And like we're making a logical leap there. I don't mean
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
that that's a one to one, but this is what I'm talking about, right? Is like at the end of the day, companies have a finite amount of resources, and every project that you greenlight means another project or another initiative doesn't get greenlit. And those things, I think the other strategies that we've talked about that they could have pursued, they make more sense for what PlayStation is and what PlayStation fans want. I don't think that there is a huge contingency of PlayStation fans that are here frothing at the mouth for a Horizon multiplayer game. They want Horizon 3, that are dying for a new multiplayer game from Naughty Dog. It's like, that's not what we want. We want a new IP. We want The Last
But
of Us
that
Part 3.
seems to
We want
be
Uncharted 5. That's what we want.
yeah, I know. That seems to be what Naughty Dog wanted to make, though. So it's not like that's been imposed on them
Yeah,
in the
sure,
same
but
way that Arcane was kind of like
right.
ZeniMax was like, "We really need you to make
But I
this
mean, like,
game."
what did it turn out to? They made something that's not good and not fun, and that Bungie didn't think had commercial viability. So, like, I'm not sitting here saying that you should force them to do anything particular, but like, maybe we don't greenlight that game. I
Mhm.
don't know, man. It's like I it's easy to sit here and be an armchair quarterback, but I don't know how you look at the industry as it is, not as it was 5 years ago, and be like, "Yeah, let's invest 60% of our development budget into live service games." I just don't think that makes sense in 2023. I really don't. And I don't think the next couple years are going to prove to be a more let's I'm going to take a step back. Let me adjust how I phrase this. I don't think the next couple years will prove to be a less hostile environment for that type of game. I don't think that the next couple years everyone's going to just have more money sitting around to throw at these games. And I think that a big part of the last couple years, success in these spaces was artificial. And we were not able to go outside, or we were not able to go to concerts or movies or whatever, and
I think
people
that was a
were
large
spending
part of
more
why
money.
VR succeeded as well, and I think it
Yeah.
should have been that should have been seen by the CEO and the management at
Mhm.
PlayStation.
And that's the thing, right? Is like you and I are just students of the industry, right? We're just commentators. But like I could see that. Why couldn't you?
Mhm.
That's all. That's it,
I
man.
mean, even Meta didn't, and I feel like a lot of it was like, well, we're looking over the fence at what they're doing, and they've got all this promising stuff, and we kind of need to keep up with the Joneses here.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, man, is like that to me shows that you're not a good leader.
Well,
You
yeah,
lack
I mean,
foresight. All you're doing is copying you like it's exactly what happened with the metaverse, right? It was all these companies, it's
yeah,
web
God,
3 and we're all gassing each
and
other up.
NFTs,
All that shit. And
yeah.
it's all bullshit. There's no consumer interest in that stuff. And I'm not going to sit here and say there's no consumer interest in games as a service. There clearly is, but people are looking at it and being it's the same fucking thing that always happens in this industry, man. Video game like suits are so like they just want to chase trends. And it's like we saw it with Hearthstone. Hearthstone was successful. Oh, everybody's got to make a card game. League of Legends is successful. Everybody's got to make a MOBA. Destiny's a thing. Now we all got to make a live service game. It never works. It never works. There are one or two games in the genre that get it right and set a standard and become the thing, and great. But like, who the fuck are you that you think you're gonna make the next Fortnite? Fortnite wasn't even Fortnite when they made it. They fell ass backwards into that, you know? Or like that you're gonna copy Hearthstone, which was a game that had a profound vision for how you could make something new and be like, we'll just copy that. We'll just copy it and that'll work. And it's like, it doesn't.
I
And
mean,
like,
that game got you Marvel Snap, so you should be very happy
and
about
I
that.
fucking love Marvel Snap. And how many other games are there in that space that are successful that you can name?
There's that Witcher one, but other than
Doesn't
that, like,
exist anymore.
oh, okay, no, no, then none, none.
And
Oh,
and
it was like, oh no, Valve had one and they got rid of that as well, didn't they?
uh-huh.
But they did Dota, and that
They
was
did
pretty
Dota,
successful.
right? And Dota's successful. That's great. And League is still around, and every other MOBA is dead. Every other one.
Yeah, I know. The Pokemon one really kind of
I
disappeared,
mean,
didn't it?
that still exists, I guess. That's cool. That's great. But like, it ain't League of Legends at its peak, right? It's not. And like,
Yeah.
Blizzard made one. They had Heroes of the Storm. That literally still exists, but they don't support it anymore. It's not a, you have to recognize with these waves that it's like there's only space for so many of these games. And
Mhm.
the more genres you introduce of like MOBAs were the hot thing a couple years ago, and now they still exist and there's still millions of people that play them. There's not room for more. There's not room for you to come in and be the new MOBA because League of Legends, we already it's the Seinfeld joke, right? We already have a George. We don't need another Fortnite. We don't. And Apex Legends was the other Fortnite, and it's starting to flag because at the end of the day, it's an imitation of the
I
top
mean,
game.
Fortnite was the other PUBG for a while, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
man, and they straight up, I remember that. I was reporting on that every week as it developed back in the day on my old podcast, and it's like I thought they were the Pepsi, they were the Coke. It happens. It can
hey, Pepsi's
happen.
better than Coke, so it's fine, you
Oh,
know?
get out of here. But point being, yeah, you can find success, but to expect it down that road lies madness, my friend. Like, there's a lot more examples of games that come out and try to swing at the champ and fail and disappear. We never think about them again than ones that come out and actually manage to establish an audience and maintain relevance for more than a couple years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd like to see them pivot away from this with their new CEO. I don't know how true that's gonna be. Spending that much money on Bungie kind of puts them in a bit of a bind, unless you
It
flog
does, but I mean,
Bungie.
what do? You double down and just keep throwing money in a hole because you hope it's going to work? It's a sunk cost fallacy at some point, right? And I don't know. Maybe we make it through this first round of 12 games and we see what happens. And if one hits, and then they're emboldened. But I
I'd
can't
rather they
imagine they put
spent
out
billions
12
on
of these
new
games and they
IP.
all flop and they keep investing. That seems crazy.
Yeah, I know. I
I
yeah,
think you cut
I
your losses and accept that you
you
overpaid
have
for
to.
Bungie,
You have to.
which I mean, I think we both agree that they did. I think there's no universe that they were worth even $1 billion, frankly. But that's a
No.
conversation for another day. To tell me that they are worth more money than Insomniac is fucking laughable to me. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, like
Laughable.
10 times, more than 10 times Insomniac.
No, not even close. I think that is such a massive overvaluation for
I
something
mean,
that could
I
end
don't know the
tomorrow.
financials. We don't know the financials. We do not know how much they're making per year. It might be a 10x on the revenue, which is pretty standard for
Maybe,
a
and maybe that's true, but it's
acquisition.
like, is it? We've talked about how much Bungie was dependent on angel investors to stay afloat.
No,
That
you're
was the
right. Yeah,
reason
you are
Xbox
right.
didn't want
Yeah.
to buy
Yeah.
them, was because
Yeah.
they don't actually make money. They're overvalued. Like, that's their claim to fame. Is, we made Destiny. Keep giving us money. Okay. I don't know. I don't know about all that, man. Like Destiny, like the last Destiny expansion did not set the world on fire. What happens if the next one sucks and Destiny's over?
I guess we'll
What
have
if
to
what
find
if
out.
what if uh Marathon doesn't hit the way Destiny did?
It won't. It just won't.
Okay. It's like I don't know what you do about that. I really don't. But we're gonna put the pin on that for today. And I'm gonna let you. Ugh. All right, take a beat. I'm a little emotional right now, Steve. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. What else is very near and dear to my heart are you, the listeners, and you, the Patreon producers, for the month of October. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobi, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to go and show your support just like they did, you want to get the show early, you want to get some other perks and goodies, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places we are all over the web and all the ways that you can get involved, including our Discord where you can keep the conversation rolling between episodes, including our email address where you can write in and have your questions read during the question block, including a bunch of other stuff. Head over there, flipscreen.games, go click on some stuff. However you choose to get involved or show your support, it helps us out a ton. So we appreciate you. Thank you. And we thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Flipscreen Games podcast. All right, so we're going to close things out with a little bit of what we're playing. We both have a ton of games to talk about. We'll talk about most of them next week. I want to at least break the seal on our Mortal Kombat 1 discussion because I picked the game up yesterday, uh, right after I got home from my vacation, went and snagged it,
Mm.
got it set
Playing on
up.
Switch, the best platform, looks phenomenal.
Oh my god. The the footage of that game on Switch is something else. I am playing it on Xbox, where it does look good. I'm really enjoying my time with it so far. I'm not too far into the game. From what I understand, the overall the story mode, which is what I'm playing right now, is about 6 hours. And when last I checked, the game was telling me I was about 15 to 20% somewhere in that range into it already. So, decent chunk, but I have just gotten to the start of the tournament, the original
Okay.
tournament. So pretty early days, but I'm really enjoying myself so far. I mean, it's more Mortal Kombat, right? Like if you've been a fan of the modern trilogy, Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11, or I guess 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? So quadrilogy, the modern games. It's very similar in style, right? Like you know what you're getting into. It's got that kind of slightly slower movement compared to some of the other modern fighters. You've got that really that sense of weight to it that you're used to if you're a Mortal Kombat fan. Um, Fidelity wise, this game is beautiful. It's insane how good it looks. And I had the most annoying installation of my life because of how big this game is. I grabbed it physically because I had those GameStop gift cards burning a hole in my pocket, and 2 discs, and it was so ridiculous, Steve. You put in the first disc, all that data gets downloaded. They download the day one patch. You put in the second disc, it downloads all that, and then another patch. Ridiculous. It's fine. It took a long
You know,
time.
I had a similar thing recently because I've started playing Cyberpunk again. I had to copy the entire game off of the disc, and then it basically downloaded the entire game again. It was a 60 gigabyte
Great.
patch for version 2.0. So, it was very frustrating, so I can feel your pain on that one.
And it's just like very much cemented for me why I don't buy physical anymore. But that's neither here nor there. Um, once I got rolling, very impressed by the look and feel of the game and like the quality of the cutscenes that they have put together. Like it's NetherRealm is so unmatched when it comes to like the single player fighting game experience, right? Like they're the only ones that still invest in making like a single player story and a new narrative, like this being like this kind of hard reboot of the original timeline and reshuffling all the pieces in kind of like an ultimate comics kind of way is really cool and really rewarding. Like it's been fun to see these characters that I know so well presented in such different ways. And
Yeah, I remember you talking about that with the trailer. You were like, "Oh, well, he used to be friends with him, and now they seem like enemies, or like vice versa."
yeah, so like famously, right, in the original trilogy, or not even trilogy, the series, right? The entire history of the series up till now. Scorpion, the get over here guy, and Sub-Zero, the ice guy, have been bitter enemies, right? Like they hate each other, they've killed each other's families, like they're on opposite sides of a like centuries old clan war, like they fucking hate each other. They're
Hmm.
brothers in this game. So, like, obviously, totally different dynamic. They're good
Yeah.
guys from the jump. Like, they work for the main good guy. That's never been the case. The Raiden, right, has always been the god figure. He's the one that goes and recruits all of Earthrealm's fighters to go participate in the tournament. He's now him and the guy who was his main apprentice have switched roles. So the guy that used to be his apprentice is the new god of this universe, and he's kind of rebirthed his old master as his apprentice now. And it's like that's a total role reversal, right? And they're very different. They're very different characters. They have totally different, you know, personalities. And it's like that shakes out so differently. So there's just like a lot, and some characters are less different, but like, still a new canon and everything. They have different relationships, different stuff like that. That's all cool. But it's hitting for me, because these are always fun to play. They're always a fun campaign, and I've been interested in the lore and in this universe for a long time. So they were always fun to go through, especially
Mhm.
because there's a zaniness to Mortal Kombat, right? Like Mortal Kombat is like very much of that older era of like video games are kind of wacky and cartoony, and like it is still that. It hasn't tried to get serious and grim dark, and like it's got a sense of humor. It's got a sense of silliness and like that very comic booky Saturday morning cartoon like energy. And I love that shit. And like you don't get a lot of that as games have been like video games are a mature art form for adults now, so we can't have fun, and like Mortal Kombat bucks that in a really cool way, and like this being this new flavor where like, oh, like I don't know which characters are going to show up, and when they do show up, who are they? Right? And like and having that mystery and that fun, it's been really rewarding. And like coming back from my break, I am excited to get back into Starfield, but I did kind of have that sense of like I'm right in the middle of stuff, and I'm, like this has been a
Yeah,
really
you just
good
want something
palate
you can
cleanser.
jump in and out of sometimes, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, being
Yeah.
able to jump into that last night, put a couple hours in, get about a third of the way through the story and be like, cool, cool. Like, I'm in a rhythm with this. I'm enjoying learning the new characters. I'm enjoying getting in the flow of it. And, like, it's been a minute. Like, I didn't play Mortal Kombat 12. And I think the last one I played seriously was maybe even 10. So, like, it's been a minute and it's been fun getting my chops back and seeing how some of the characters' move sets have evolved. And yeah, I'm having a great time with it. I think if you're a fighting game fan, if you've been on the fence or whatever, right? Like if Mortal Kombat is for you, if you've been a Mortal Kombat fan, I think you owe it to yourself to give this one a spin. And if you're a newbie and like you've never played Mortal Kombat, but you've liked the idea of a more old school single player experience where you get like a nice 6 to 10 hour story and you can kind of have like a fun little weekender with it. And maybe you don't want to get super serious. I think it still has a lot to offer you, and it's good. The presentation in terms of the quality of like the acting and the visual look of the game is so striking and impressive and cool. Like NetherRealm is pretty unmatched when it comes to that. So I think it's a great time to jump on because even if you don't have that legacy of the game like I do, and you won't be able to be like, oh, cool, Raiden's different. Oh, cool, Scorpion's different. That's fine. This could be a new jumping on point for you, right? Because this is now the new canon, and it seems very clear that this is what we're doing moving forward. This isn't a one off and a reset. It seems like this is the new mythology moving forward. This is going to be
Yeah,
the
it's like a
next
new
era.
timeline we've
Yeah.
jumped into. Yeah. I like it, it's
So,
cool.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to hearing more and hearing what you think about the story once you've kind of got to the end of it. I'm sure there'll be some twists and turns
yeah.
along the way.
Yeah, so it sounds like we'll be able to do a nice what we're playing next week because we've got a couple games we want to dive into. So we got that and a couple questions from the question block. We've got some layoff conversations to have next week. We
Yeah,
might need to
sad
do an
times.
extra episode, but we're gonna get to
I
all
don't know, I'm
that and a
hoping
lot
it's a
more.
quiet week, unless Phil Spencer steps down, which I'll be happy if he does, if he announces his
You'll be
retirement, it'd be
happy. It's
nice
really
2
worth that
points.
1 point that still won't win you your
2? That's a
predictions, huh?
risky pick. That's 2. That puts me
Oh,
back in the
okay. All
running,
right.
alright?
You're right. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I'll
Touche.
be very happy if he's like, "You know what? I'm announcing my succession plan. Jim Ryan is gonna be the new CEO of Xbox."
Oh my god. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about Mortal Kombat more next week if people are interested. But I did want to just quickly at least share my thoughts. Loving the game so far. Happy to get back to it after we get off here. I'm gonna go put another 2 hours into it, I think, and see how we do. So by next
Nice.
week, I'll be done for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
All right, gang. So we're gonna wrap it for today. Remember, if you want to write in and be a part of the show, if you want to get the show early, if you want to get involved in any of the ways you can get involved, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places we are all over the web. However, you choose to get involved or show your support. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Flipscreen Games podcast. Remember, next week, we got what we're planning to talk about. We got some existing questions. We got these right in right? We got a lot to talk about. I want to hear from you, the listener. What games are you playing? What do you want to hear us talk about with Mortal Kombat 1, Starfield, Deceive Inc., Cyberpunk 2077's 2.0 update, and what is it? What's it called? Something
What?
City? Nighttown? I can't remember the
Oh, I'm
expansion.
not playing that yet. So that's there, but yeah, I'm not playing that yet.
Well, there's that. And Cocoon. We got a lot to talk about. Write in
Mm.
about all of it or whatever else you want to write in about. I want to get a nice big mailbag for next week. So make sure you hit us with your thoughts and feelings. And thanks again for tuning in. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week for another episode of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, baby. Take it easy.